All right, let's shift gears completely into something that affects all of us, not just five of us and a bunch of search and rescue people. There's been an ongoing dance and debate about interest rates and inflation there in the United States. The same thing is actually happening here in Australia as well. You know, it's the Reserve Bank. These people are just the most irresponsible people in the world. You see them in their fancy suits and their fancy press conferences and their fancy everything. But you know what they really are is they're criminals. Because the people at the Reserve Bank here, let me give you the Aussie perspective, during COVID panicked. They panicked like the world was going to end. And they're just a bunch of weak-minded pussies is the way that I describe it. I couldn't help but see the Reserve Bank governor here in Australia going, well, remember, we thought that there was going to be 1 million people that were going to die in Australia and all this was going to happen. And I'm like, Henny Penny, the sky is not falling, dude. You know, you could have just took it nice and gentle and slow and steady wins the race and do that. But instead you panicked and you printed so much money and you caused this inflation and you're trying to do that to head off some imaginary problem that doesn't yet exist. It's like the whole thing was just in their minds. They never allowed it to develop or to play out. And as a result of that, there's been 11 consecutive interest rate rises. So they go and they print all of this money in an attempt to actually help people and to save people, but really what they're doing is helping the government, and the government just wants to be re-elected. And then they inflict this pain by destroying the economy and then creating inflation on top of it, creating interest rates. And now I saw just in the last couple of days in the UK, I think it was the UK, maybe somewhere in that part of the world in Europe, they were talking about making sure that there was 200,000 people that lost their jobs. Because if there's no more people in the economy spending money, then it takes the heat out of the economy. We don't have to raise interest rates anymore. So the powers that be, the deep state, the cabal, the banks, the government, all they do is inflict financial pain on you to solve the problems that they've created. It just boggles my mind at how incompetent these people are and how reactive they are. You know, whenever I look at something in business or just in life in general, I try and get ahead of the curve. I try and be proactive. When I set up this podcast, I set up an hour before we actually press the record button because I'm trying to be proactive and get ahead of the things that might happen to create the graphics, to create something as simple as a bloody podcast. But the government can't even get ahead of anything. And in the United States, man, it's even worse. What have you found? What have you discovered for a second? Sorry, that's my high horse rant there. Sorry.
That's all right. Go water your horse for a second, and I'll take over for you. Okay, well, now I don't have my usual pre-recorded presentation here because I don't think I need it. This is a topic that I'm pretty familiar with, so I'm just going to talk to you guys, naked here, just without visual help. Listen, that's the ongoing question, right? Is whether or not the Federal Reserve and the money guys are incompetent, or whether these things are done by design. And there can be arguments made for both sides there. Now, we always have to remember that the Federal Reserve is not a government organization. It's not a government. It's a private bank. And I mean, it's called the Federal Reserve Bank, right? Well, then it's not federal. It's not a bank, and they don't have any reserves. So Federal Bank Reserve is like completely misnamed.
You're going to get us canceled. Careful.
I know,
You're
right?
Going right up against that electric fence.
Right? But these people have big money interests to answer to. So when they go in front of Congress and they give their little speech saying, "We're here to look out for you," don't believe a word they're saying. They're not there to look out for you. They've got people to answer to, and now they kept interest rates at basically zero for an awful long time. It was a free money environment. A lot of people made a lot of money on that environment. A lot of people buying houses with like 2% mortgage rates out there. There were a lot of international corporations taking out loans. It was a free money environment, and that was and this is the problem with Western countries. As Vladimir Putin does have correctly, we are a debt-based society. Right, so we live off of debt. Well,
and he rolled the dice on that by saying that we need to move economies back to commodities-based societies because you can eat commodities, you can eat wheat, you can eat soy, you can eat all of those things related to commodity. You can't eat money, you can't eat debt. And that's the fundamental difference between his philosophy and whatnot. May I just interject there, because it kind of adds to what you're saying, is yesterday the Pentagon came out and said that there was another accounting error with the money that we're giving to Ukraine, and it to the tune of $6.2 billion. My God. Oops. How could you make an accounting error for $6.2 billion? So Zelensky's dancing in the street in his jumper on the red carpet somewhere in Europe with Ursula, but whatever, that how can I saw a tweet. It says in all caps, it says, "I'm never paying taxes again." Like the guy's shouting, and I'm like, what? Why is he never paying taxes again? And I looked at the video, $6.2 billion accounting error. So to your point, Ed, you say, is it by design or is it incompetence? Well, that just shows you squarely how incompetent these people actually are and how incompetent they can be.
Hold on. Go ahead. Go finish your thought.
Yeah, so I was just going to say, so when you look at 0% interest rates over an extended period of time, is it that they're incompetent and they keep them there because they don't know what else to do? Or is that by design because they're keeping the economy on life support for as long as possible to get us to this point in history where we're at now, where the whole thing's about to come undone and unravel? It's a bit of both.
Well, incompetence is rewarded, right? We talk about all the time. If you want to, fail upward, work for the government. It doesn't matter how bad you are. You'll get, if you know the right people, if you're part of the club, you're all set. You don't have to worry about losing your job. They'll move you over to the State Department and give you a raise, right? So that's government work for you. There's that phrase, when someone gives an estimate on something and it's way off, and they say, it's good enough for government work. They're saying there.
I used to say that all the time.
Yeah, there's no accountability in government. When we first started sending money over, I told you this is going to happen. I told you that, and you said, no, Ed, they've got a guy, apparently they're going to account for everything. Yeah, they're going to account for everything. They never account for anything. There's a lot of people making a lot of money on this war, and they rely on these little holes. It's like those old-fashioned saloons where they'd open a saloon in a gold mining community, and the kids would go underneath the floorboard to collect the gold dust that's falling through the floorboards. Yep. So there's a lot of gold dust falling through the floors of government right now. A lot of people, that money's not lost. Trust me, someone's getting it, and someone's taking it. And a lot of brand new houses are being built in the suburbs around Washington D.C. Off of this.
You know what it highlights? It highlights the military industrial complex that we hear about all the time. So if you think of that amount of money, it's like $6.2 billion. And there was an accounting error like 3 months ago for $2 billion as well that they made. Don't quote me there. I can't remember exactly what that was, but it was a decent chunk of change. And so now we've had, we're approaching $10 billion worth of accounting errors. And and they go, oh, well, we're going to allocate that money anyway. It just means we've got more money than we anticipated. So let's keep spending. Let's keep doing that. But here's the catch. I saw in the redacted email earlier today. So Natalie does the email on a daily basis. And as I was just kind of listening to you there, clicking through it. So when you look at one of the screenshots that she has in there, one of the things that they do in that email, you should head over to redacted and get on that email list, folks, because it's actually really good. She has by the numbers, news by the numbers. And she's got a screenshot there and it says $51,606. And that's how much Boeing charges the US government for trash cans that it puts inside its airplanes. So when you hear the military industrial complex and you hear about, there's a $6 billion error, what's going on? Well, not only is there mistakes happening from the government level, but the military industrial complex is gouging the government from another level. I watched a report just a couple of days ago about Stinger missiles, and they were charging something like $240,000 per missile that was fired. But in reality, the things are only worth 20 grand. They're like cheap, but they're charging like a 10x of what the thing is actually worth. It's just gouging. Here in Australia, we have a thing called NDIS, National Disability Insurance Scheme, or something like that. So if I go down to the local chemist and I've got a bit of a dodgy knee and I need a knee brace, Yeah, sure. Here you go, Rob. Here's the 5 different versions. This is the one that looks like the right one for you, mate. There's that one there. It's $90. If I come in and go, oh, look, I'm covered by NDIS because I'm permanently disabled or whatever criteria I meet, that same knee brace is worth like $400 suddenly. Same thing. It's just gouging, man. Gouging. So incompetence, gouging, corruption, and actual deliberate, as you say, deliberate conspiracies, deliberate plans, deliberate something. I don't know. I can't figure the word.
Well, I don't think it's that much incompetence. I think it's mostly corruption. Look, we have to pay for these secret UFO programs somehow, right? and
or you do shit tins on planes for $200,000 each.
Yeah,
I'll go down to Home Depot here or Bunnings and get you one for bloody $30 if you want.
So